Long time no see. Here, I work as a flight attendant. Oliver, what are you doing right now? I ran into Ashley, a stunning French classmate I had a falling out with in high school, at the airport more than 10 years after I dropped out of school. When I made the decision to drop out of high school, she made fun of me. You couldn't possibly be doing anything noteworthy as a high school dropout. How come you're at the airport at all? Ashley continued to speak to me in an arrogant way and with that tough look in her eyes. Feeling a little awkward, I replied, I'm a pilot for your company. What? Are you a pilot? A dropout from high school could never accomplish that. Actually, she departed as I was about to explain because a colleague called her away. We met again in the most unfortunate circumstances with Ashley. We had no idea that our lives would become so deeply entwined after this. My name is Oliver. As a first-year high school student, I live with my parents and my younger sister, Sky, in a household of 4. The parents of my mother are still living, but the parents of my father have passed away. I'm 25% French because they reside in France and my grandfather is French. Can you speak French? Is a common question from peers when you're a quarter French. However, being a quarter does not imply that you speak French from birth. I'm working hard in my studies right now, so I can use video calls to talk to my grandfather who doesn't speak English. My grandparents and I have not yet met, but we intend to travel to France in the near future. I become enthusiastic about my French classes as a result, working extra hard to prepare and revise. Ashley, a French student in my class, and I are usually vying for first place in French examinations. I'm motivated to defeat Ashley the following time because she beat me to the top spot in the last test. Everyone starts their own rivalries during exams, but overall, our class gets along great. Though not on a field trip, over half of us visited an aquarium recently. Naturally, Ashley and I also participated in it. Ashley and I had a rough time there, ended up competing in Pride, and ended up with a French copy of the aquarium tour pamphlet. It is, after all, a handbook to the aquarium, and as such, replete with obscure fish names. We couldn't understand what it was talking about because it's all in French. As soon as we opened the brochure, we both thought, oh no. However, it was too late to turn back when they were both looking on. We really couldn't grasp half of that French leaflet, even though we spent the entire day trying to understand it. It occurs to me that we and a few others visited an aircraft museum a few weeks before to the aquarium. I've always loved flying and want to become a pilot. Ashley invited me and a couple of my close friends, and she received free tickets. I was excited to see that the museum featured both the history of commercial aviation and the newest advancements in passenger aircraft technology. I chatted enthusiastically about how beautiful airplanes are during a break at the museum's cafe, which kind of turned off the other people. Ashley, though, was the only one who listened through to the very finish without showing any contempt. Ashley must be an avid traveler as well. The carefree days of high school appeared to have a bright future, but it proved to be a charming delusion. It was nearing the end of the first year of high school on a snowy day. We didn't have any snow removal equipment ready because it doesn't snow very often where we live. However, we determined that it would be preferable to use a shovel given the nighttime snowfall, so my dad went to the home store to get one. Normally, we would have to drive to the home center, which is rather distant and located along the highway, but we didn't have chains. My sister and I were watching the home, so they decided to go on foot as driving in the snow was obviously too risky. We discussed how much Mom and Dad had aged. We made a joke that since they were so late, they would be getting coffee at a cafe because it was too chilly outside. They arrived extraordinarily late. We were beginning to wonder if they had fallen somewhere when my phone rang from an unfamiliar number. I reluctantly answered, discovering it was a police call. As my parents were strolling down the highway, a truck that had skidded on the ice struck them. They died before they could be operated on, despite the fact that an ambulance was called right away. Although I was the one who took the phone, My sister saw right through my expression and started crying. I sobbed as well, holding her. I was unable to think because of how awful everything was. At 15, all I could do was cry with my sister. Now, what should we do? Our maternal grandparents in France were our only remaining choice since our paternal grandparents in the United States had already passed away. As soon as they heard the news, they took off for the United States. They made the following suggestion at the wake and funeral. Why don't you come live with us in France? You can each have a spare room from us. Don't worry about school. You may sign up for one over there. It was scary to leave the country of my birth and upbringing, the United States. Nevertheless, we were left with little option but to rely on our kindly and reassuring grandparents once our parents passed away. My sister had the same thoughts. The following day, I told my classmates, I'm quitting school and going to my grandma's place in France. It's sudden. Naturally, they were all taken aback. I kept the news of my parents passing to myself since I didn't want to burden them. To them, it felt like the person who had been absent for a week suddenly returned to class and announced his intention to drop out. Ashley in particular, who was adamantly against. Calm down, Oliver, and focus. You won't have any options for the future if you drop out of high school. Don't you want to become a pilot? She spoke, almost crying with rage. However, I was too distraught to think about Ashley's actual meaning at the time because I had just lost my parents. If there was nothing we could do, did it really matter? Right now, the siblings and I were in danger. Our grandparents in France were our only source of support. I had some misgivings, though. It is not relevant to you. I am traveling to France. I lost my temper. Everyone in the class was astonished to see Ashley and I, who are normally on excellent terms, yelling at each other like this. We stormed out of the classroom, neither of us having the luxury to give a damn about the surroundings. Ashley missed school the day after that and the day after that. I left for France without making up my mind. It was years ago. I was enrolled in a high school in France as soon as I got there. Although I believed I had studied French extensively, the high school subjects taught in the language were quite difficult. I was repeatedly taught words by my grandparents. Together, we would read school announcements and textbooks, with them translating into English whatever I didn't understand. At first, my sister had a hard time adjusting to the French middle school and would frequently cry. But in less than 2 months, she gained friends, surpassed me in French, and even taught me some slang. I never missed a grade and advanced through high school gradually because of my family. I continued on to university after I stopped having linguistic difficulties. I became a pilot, realizing a lifelong desire. I worked for a French airline for a few years before being recruited by an American airline and moving back to the States. As I was enjoying the comforting atmosphere of the airport today, I unexpectedly recognized Ashley. Ashley, who I'm going to start working as a flight attendant for next month, and I had a falling out in high school. Ashley came running up when she saw me, carrying her carry-on and walking with confidence in her outfit. Her eyes opened in surprise, but she followed up with a slightly patronizing, long time, no see. Here, I am employed as a flight attendant. Oliver, what are you doing right now? Following your high school dropout. Feeling a little uncomfortable, I replied, I'm a pilot for your company. What? Ashley had a perplexed expression. You're correct. Maybe we go get some coffee. It happened just as I was going to invite her to chat about my stay in France. Ashley quickly left after receiving a call from a coworker wearing the same outfit. Ashley, who had been stunning since high school, had grown into an even more elegant and stunning adult. She looked great in the tiny flight attendant attire. I watched, dazed, as she retreated back. Ashley gave me a quick peek back before rounding the corner. We locked eyes for a moment before hurriedly averting our confused gazes. Were we still unable to make up once we eventually got together? To myself, I muttered, There had always been a nagging feeling in the back of my mind that Ashley and I had broken up badly. Even so, it could have some significance to work for the same organization. I'm confident there will be a chance to make things right. I got up and walked over to say hello to the group. My first flight with the new airline went to Paris the following month. Although I've been flying for years, it was my first flight in the sense that it was with this company. It was just another airplane day. I was taking a break at the airport after making it to Paris safely. "Oliver, would you like to join me for lunch?" I received an invitation to a supper from a flight attendant colleague of Ashley's. Well, most flight attendants are really pretty, but she was especially gorgeous. "Lunch is a terrific idea. Hey, how about if we also bring Ashley?" I proposed, reasoning that having Ashley join would make it more enjoyable. However, her colleague sighed slightly and turned to leave. Ashley sighed, "Oliver, you're as oblivious as ever. What is the issue? Are the two of you not getting along?" "Well, Ashley, how about we have lunch?" "I have a prior engagement." "Okay, no worries then." I turned to stare out the window aimlessly as she curtly declined. Ashley said she had an earlier commitment, but she didn't head out right away. However, after a while, she gave me a quick look out the window, remarked, "Well then," and vanished. I held up a little hand to Ashley. She mentioned having a previous engagement, but I wasn't sure if it involved her coworkers who work as flight attendants. She may possibly have a boyfriend in Paris given her extensive travels. I was uncomfortable with the idea for some reason. Perhaps I still feel something for Ashley. I did, after all, like Ashley in high school, but that was more than 10 years ago. There were girls in France that I liked, too. When I worked for the Canadian airline, I had a couple women I fancied, and I had a girlfriend when I was in college. However, it appears that I still haven't moved on from my first love, because I'm feeling this uneasy merely because a casual dinner offer was turned down. I smiled ruefully and went to a cafe to have a light snack and some bitter espresso. Something happened to me a few days later while I was piloting the trip from Paris back to the United States. We were ready to land in Los Angeles when my plane experienced extreme turbulence. The instruments showed no odd readings until right before it impacted, so it had to have happened suddenly. The plane jolted violently in both directions. Thomas was flying with me today on his first international flight as a co-pilot, and he was in utter terror, not even able to report back to the ground, something he had been doing with ease only a few minutes earlier. I alerted the ground to the problem right away and asked for assistance. "Pardon me, Oliver. I need to give you a report. A number of people have been hurt, according to Ashley." Even though she was speaking calmly, her voice was shaking, and she had terrible skin, as I could see when I looked in the mirror. While flying, turbulence is common, but this instance was exceptionally strong. Thomas and Ashley remain composed. They are the individuals I would want to rely on in an emergency. So I tried to seem calm and collected as I added, "It's going to shake, but take a sip of water." My voice was slow and steady, but my thoughts were racing. Subsequently, a warning light that indicated an engine problem began to flicker. This was not what I expected. However, one of the duties of a captain is to react to unforeseen circumstances. After telling myself 3 times to calm down, I inhaled deeply. I then gave a brief announcement to the passengers outlining the present circumstances. Even though it's an emergency, I advise everyone to exercise caution because of the increased danger of damage caused by the shaking. Thankfully, our destination airport is not far away, and we plan to land on time. I communicated closely with the air traffic controller at the same time. Thomas was still trembling, but I could understand his fear because it was his first time traveling internationally, and he had to deal with 2 problems at once. I said to Ashley, "Ashley, please support Thomas." I recognized the sense of being overtaken, but he remained the co-pilot. Thomas needed to gather himself immediately and give me support. Ashley looked a little better after taking a sip of water, nodded, and asked Thomas again. The fact that the air traffic controller had expertise pleased me. I thought the worst when the engine malfunctioned in the middle of the turbulence. With the controller's exact advice and instructions, though, I was able to safely land the aircraft on the runway. I learned later that the plane's occupants erupted in cheers as soon as we touched down. Although I felt bad for worrying them, I was glad that only minor cuts and bruises prevented anyone from being seriously injured. You're an amazing person, Oliver. After waving the passengers off, Thomas added, I knew you were a skilled pilot from what the boss said, but this is beyond my expectations. He then made his way back to the cockpit. He sobbed as he took hold of my hand. No, not at all. I simply carried out my captain's duties, I answered. Though my legs were actually shaking a little, I forced a smile to cover up my anxiety. The worst possible outcome would have occurred if it had been any other pilot. Oliver, you're the reason I'm here, doing well, and all the passengers are safe. Your assessment was truly exceptional, Thomas remarked, still moved. It was the air traffic controller who gave us really precise instructions, so we owe it to them that we made it, I said. Touched, Thomas said, to overcome such a crisis and still be so humble. I'll strive to become a person like you, Oliver. The safe landing caused him to cry for a long while. I approached Ashley, who was doing an inside inspection of the aircraft after getting Thomas on the ground. Ashley, are you okay? She seemed to be limping a little, so I questioned. Yes, I'm sorry for losing my composure earlier, she responded. No, it's natural to be startled at first, but you quickly became calm and helped Thomas, which was a great help, I responded. Ashley grinned and continued, I had to get back quickly to support the passengers because they were all anxious. Did you hurt your foot? Just a tiny bit. In the turbulence, I managed to twist my ankle trying to support an elderly passenger. I'll have a look. I promised to take care of it. Ashley was forced to sit while I gently administered a damp compress and bandaged it. Observing how swollen her ankle was, I remarked, wearing heels probably made the twist worse. I cleaned a wound that appeared to have been made on her knee at the same time. Ashley started, cringing at the sting of decontamination. Oliver, she said. I made a huge mistake when you told me you were graduating from high school. I apologize, but it's late. Don't worry, everything will work out. At the time, I was also under stress, so I spoke rudely, I added. I apologize. I learned about your family's predicament later. At the time, I had no idea you were going through that. I only stated those things to persuade you to stay because I was afraid and upset that you were going to leave for another nation. Ashley remarked, I really regret what I said after learning about your family. Everything is okay. I had also kept my family status a secret from others. All right, how about we call this a reconciliation? As I fastened the bandage on her knee, I grinned. Ashley grinned as well. Yes, a reconciliation. After 15 years. Ashley and I were able to resume our previous easygoing relationship following the turbulent event. Ashley frequently traveled on the same aircraft as me because she worked as a flight attendant on foreign trips while I continued to fly as a captain. As a captain, I received support from all the flight attendants, of course, but Ashley's understanding made a big difference for me. She understood what I needed very quickly. I feel more at ease on the planes you pilot than anyone else's, added Ashley. We kept our nice professional relationship going, but there was a catch. I still had affections for Ashley. I didn't know how to tell her that we were now good coworkers. I made multiple attempts to ask her out, particularly after lengthy flights, but I was often stopped by coworkers or forced to talk about work instead of expressing my feelings. First loves are said to never be satisfied. I was sitting on the airport rooftop staring at airplanes when Ashley arrived and sat alongside me. It was one of those days, so full of hurting feelings. She said, Oliver, have you eaten yet? Not just yet. I was just staring at the planes and nodding off. I believe that. I also bought you a sandwich over here. Oh, I see. Thank you. You're quite considerate. Obviously. You've remained the same since high school. You used to skip lunch because you would become so absorbed in talking about planes back then. Are you serious? I can't recall doing that. Yes, but it was great to hear you speak so passionately about airplanes. Unbeknownst to me at the time, I also developed an interest in airplanes. I became a flight attendant for that reason. I made you decide on a career because of me. Oh no, you have my gratitude. This is a position that I think fits me. Ashley usually gives me the look when she speaks, but not today. The fact that you were the only person who stayed up to hear me talk about planes made me very happy. Ashley, even though I traveled to Canada, I couldn't stop thinking about you. Me too. Ashley's lips moved, but I couldn't hear her voice. I inhaled deeply, thinking that it was either now or never to ask her out. Ashley, I still have feelings for you. Ashley's voice became strained, Oliver. Ashley, will you be with me, with marriage in mind? Her answer got lost in the cacophony of an aircraft taking off, but smiles filled her cheeks. Ashley, I love you. Ashley's bright eyes brimmed with enormous tears as I gave her a tight hug. I've loved you too, Oliver, for the entire time. I always ended up being stubborn and unable to express my desire to be with you, even though I always wanted to be more honest and leap into your arms. I understand, Ashley, so it's all right. I adore every aspect of you, including your occasionally awkward behavior. From now on, let's always be together, both on the ground and in the air. I swear we'll be together forever. Go nowhere at this time. I refuse to leave. I will be with you if I do. Ashley, I recalled the period of time I spent without attending high school. I was a helpless youngster then, able only to turn away. But that's not the case currently. I've grown into a self-sufficient grown-up. I promised Ashley, through sobs, that I would never, ever let go, and that I would never, ever let her feel alone again. It has been years since my return to the United States. I'm flying with lots of people again today. As of right now, Ashley is chief. She effectively, and occasionally harshly, manages the onboard cabin attendants. The heavens are lovely. As she leaves, I look up at the sky as I stand in the airport. Of course, the sky is lovely when viewed from the airport or in private. Every nation has a unique sky with its own hue and allure. The sky that carries our passenger's life, as viewed from the cockpit, is, in my opinion, the most magnificent. Maybe this tension is what gives the sky its extra beauty. There have been bumps in my life. Though there were moments when I felt unexpectedly hopeless, I'm glad I didn't give up. I am appreciative of having realized my dream. That's why I'm floating through the skies today. Having been married this spring, Ashley and I are getting married after completing our first love. I'm not going to give up on what I stand for. You can accomplish your ambitions someday if you don't give up. Now with fresh perspective, I make my way to the cockpit.